सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां कर्म सम्मूढचेताः। यश्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ॐ मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितं आविर्मयेधि वेदस्य महाणिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मावतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अश्वभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गै स्तुष्ट्वाग्वं स्वस्तनूभिः दशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरेरिव भूत्वा पवित्रो वाजनीव स्वामृतमस्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कुर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Narayan, everyone. Okay, so I think last time we finished 48, and so now we start with 49. So would you like to read, Nera?
Yes. Section to 49, right?
48
In this way, the Lord has discussed in detail the subject of action as the action underlines the discipline of Karma Yoga. Now the Lord begins the discussion of the subject of Sankhya Yoga.
So far we had talked about the nature of how to do action as a Karma Yogi. Now we will discuss it from a point of view of a Sankhya Yoga. Yeah. Asato buddhi sarvatra.
Asakto buddhi sarvatra.
Jitatma vigate sapraha. Vigaspraha.
Jitatma vigataspraha.
Nesha karma siddhim paramam.
Naisha karma siddhim paramam.
Sanyaseno
adhigacchati.
Sanyasena dhigacchati.
Sanyasena adhigacchati. With the intellect uninvolved everywhere, with the self under control, free of desire, a person attains the supreme state of freedom from action through renunciation. the supreme state of freedom from action. In this shloka, the Lord has referred to Naishkarmya Siddhi, or the state of freedom from action. A Sankhya yogi has the conviction of having complete identity with the Supreme Self. The Supreme Self is the source of all energy and power which activates nature, but Self is absolutely free of any activity. On the account of this complete identity with the Self, the Sankhya yogi is also absolutely free of all action. The supreme state is quite distinct from the state of perfection mentioned in Shloka 45. In that shloka, the Lord has described the state of a karma yogi, who possesses the sense of being a performer of action as only an instrument in the hands of the Lord. But in this shloka, the Lord has described the state of the Sankhya yogi, who is completely detached from nature and is posited in the self, which is devoid of action. By such direct perception of and complete identification with the self, such a Sankhya yogi is totally dissociated from the psychophysical organism. Obviously, such a yogi has no involvement with or no exception of any gain from worldly activities, totally absorbed in his own selfhood and perfectly content with himself. Such a saintly man is free of all desires and has absolute control of himself.
So what Bhagwanji is saying, we understand that a Sankhya yogi is a person who's completely given up any association with the body, which means they've given up complete association with all relationships that exist with the body, all the subtle aspects of the body, which is the intellect, the ego, the senses, the likes, dislikes. They've given up any association with any of those things. And when they give up that association, they attach their association purely as Bhagwanji. And they interact with the world purely on a requirement and purpose basis. So they will still have food, they will still do everything to survive in the world, but all of that is very deeply purpose driven, and it is not out of likes and dislike, and it is with no expectation of pleasure or no expectation of achievement. So while they interact with the world, they're not creating any actions, they're not creating any karma. It is Bhagwan that is doing it through them, and they have no sense of ownership of any aspect of it. Right? So we are not there. We are all karma yogis. We all have a sense of uh, 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 doership that exists. And our journey as grahast people, as people who have families, and in the state we are, is to do the action with the right purpose, but offer the result to Bhagwanji and dissociate with any expectation as a result of that action. That's where we are. Sankhya Yogi is a step further where they have no association with the body and with samsara. Yeah. And we'll read that perfect state of how action in the next 4 shlokas. Would you like to add? Vijay, would you like to read?
After this description of mental outfit of Shankya Yogi, the Lord describes his attainment.
Siddhim prapto yata brahma
Siddhim prapta yata brahma
tatha tathatnopti nibbodhame
tatapnobdi nibodhame
samaseneva kaunteya
samaseneva kaunteya
nishta jnanasya ya para.
nishta jnanasya ya para.
Next one.
Yeah,
We'll read all 4 together.
sure.
Buddhiya vishuddhya yuktaha. Buddhiya vishuddhya yuktaha.
Buddhaya vishuddhya yuktaha
Dhrityatmanam niyamya niyamya cha dhrityamanam niyamya cha
Manam niyamya cha.
Dhritat. You can say.
Dhritayatmanam niyamya cha.
Dhrityatmanam niyamya cha.
धृतयात्मानं नियम्य च
Shabdad. Okay, this is tricky. Shabdadi Vishayanstyaktva
Shabdadin vishayan sakyatva.
शब्दादीन् विषयांस्त्याक्तव
Styaktva
Styaktva.
त्यक्त्वा
Ragadesho Vyudasya cha
रागद्वेषो विद्युश्च च
Vivito Sevi Labvashi
विविक्ते सेवि लग्वाशी
Yatva Kakar Yamanasa
Yatvaka manasaha.
Yatvakya Yamanasa
यक्वया मानसः
Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam
ध्यानयोगोपरो नित्यम्
Vairagyam Samupatrita
Ashritaha.
Pashrita
वैराग्यं समुपाश्रितः
Ahankaram Balam Dapraha
Darpam.
Darpam
अहं
Ahankaram Balam Darpam
अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं
Kamakrodham Parigraham
कामं क्रोधं परिग्रहं
Vimucha Nirmamam Shanto
विमुच्य धर्मं ममुं शान्तो
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
ब्रह्मा भूयाय कल्पते.
Thank you.
O Kaunteya, learn from me, in brief, how the yogi, having reached perfection, attains to the Supreme Self, in whom lies the culmination of direct perception. Preface to Attainment of Supreme Self. In this sloka, the Lord has prefaced the attainment of Supreme, Absolute, and Eternal Self. In the next three shlokas, Lord would explain all the characteristics which develop in a Shankya yogi when pious to attain the Supreme Self. Equipped with pure intellect, controlling oneself with fortitude, relinquishing the objects of the senses like sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, and abandoning the temptations and aversions. Resorting to solitude, eating sparingly with speech, body, and mind under control, engaged in the yoga of meditation, taking recourse of renunciation, totally abandoning egotism, use of force, pride, passion, anger, and avarice, being free from the sense of owning and established in perfect calm, a person is fit to attain the Supreme Self.
So let's pause here for a second. The first thing is in Shloka 50, right? He says, learn from me in brief how the yogi, having reached perfection, attains the Supreme Self. The reason why Bhagwanji tells Arjun that learn from me in brief is because Bhagwanji knows Arjun is a Karma Yogi. His role is not Sankhya Yogi, but he is parting him the knowledge so that he never confuses his role to feel he is a Sankhya Yogi. And that's why we also study it, so that we take full ownership of why we are doing a particular action, because we do have that doership, and focus on renouncing it. And in the last few classes, in fact, the last class, we talked a lot about a person's innate characteristics that they are born with, right? And how that's classified. And because we are born with those innate characteristics, if we leave the battlefield,
Continue. Continue. Continue.
right? So if you leave the uh, like if Arjun even leaves the battlefield, right? Because he's a Kshatriya nature and he goes and renounces and goes into the forest, chances are he'll become a leader there also. He'll get people together, he'll start doing the work because his innate characteristics are such that he will always be in action and he'll always be in creation, right? That's why we are studying this perfect state of a Sankhya Yoga in brief. And now we'll read about each of those characteristics.
The characteristic of Sankhya Yogi, it would be useful to understand clearly the characteristics mentioned in these three shlokas. Pure intellect, an intellect devoid of covetousness and hatred is said to be pure.
So the first point, pure intellect, is only achieved when the intellect is completely in uh, directed towards Bhagwanji, to the supreme state. That is when it is filled with love, because God's nature is that love and compassion. So for you to be absent of covetousness and hatred, that means it will be filled with love. That means it's directed towards Bhagwanji.
Controlling oneself, the continuous simulation of thoughts tend to disturb the equipoise of mind and balanced functioning of the senses. Constant vigilance, effort, and fortitude help in controlling onslaughts of these stimulants.
So again, out here, the continuous simulation of thoughts tend to disturb the equipoise of mind. Controlling oneself here is basically being the person who's an observer of thoughts. He's not engaging in any thought. He's purely being an observer to thoughts, right? Equipoise, which is equanimity. Person is not thinking, but just observing.
Relinquishing the objects of senses. The senses have natural tendency to run out and enjoy pleasing sensations. Constant remembrance of transient nature of all sense objects and of the immense harm accruing from preoccupation with them. Shloka 62-63 of chapter 2 gives complete freedom from all the thoughts of these objects.
Yeah.
Abandoning temptation and aversions. The mind enjoys thinking of tempting objects and abhors those to which it has an aversion. These temptation and aversions keep the mind disturbed. By abandoning both of them, mind gradually becomes tranquil.
Very clear.
Solitude. Discipline on the lines mentioned above creates natural tendency to live in solitude. Contact with others is then restricted only to essential interaction necessary to maintain a harmonious life.
So this
It,
is important to understand. For Sankhya Yoga, they don't go to the mountains and other places to look for solitude. It is their nature to be that. Because their interaction with sansar is extremely pointed and limited. It is purely based on purpose. It is purely based on if Bhagwanji wants them to interact. They're very happy just being in a state of bliss with Bhagwanji and having no association with body. So that's what this solitude means here. Yeah.
eating sparingly.
Continue.
It's okay, you can continue. The background noise is not a problem.
Sorry about it.
No, not at all.
Eating sparingly. Excessive eating leads to laziness, indolence, and disease. Temperance in eating keeps the body healthy, the mind active, and consciousness concentrated. These are helpful in meditation.
So all of us eat with purpose, right? Most of us will eat more for pleasure, right? But an athlete like a Virat Kohli or like a professional athlete, people who have an ambition in fitness or whatever, they eat with purpose. They will only have gluten-free food if it creates inflammation. They'll only want more protein. They'll want something else, right? They all eat with purpose. A Sankhya Yoga eats with only the intent of sharpening their meditation, sharpening their connection. Anything, any food item that they eat which takes them away from their dhyan, they will let go. Because their focus is complete association with Bhagwanji at all times. Right? That's what this refers to here.
Control of speech, body, and mind. This is achieved by cutting out all useless activity so that the vital power is used for spiritual attainments.
Yeah. So this is again very clear. Go on.
Meditation, along with diversion of the mind from the sense objects, it has to be kept engaged in contemplation of Lord so that there may be steady flow of spiritual thoughts. By such meditation, it will gradually become absorbed in divinity.
I think Tuna has mentioned this many times in class, which is the mind will always latch on to something. Right now, in the state that we are, it latches on either to the past or the future. And sometimes in the present when we need to act, right? But it's always constantly reacting from past expectations and then makes the present unhappy, or it reacts to future expectations. And if that doesn't come in now in the present, then we become unhappy or happy, right? A Sankhya Yoga, on the other hand, is taken that mind and completely dedicated it into the thought of Bhagwanji, the desire of Bhagwanji, of being with Bhagwanji, 24/7. There is no other thought that they engage with. So their mind is constant contemplation of just the Supreme Self.
Renunciation, it does not mean total denial of objects of the world. True renunciation means absence of expectation of any pleasure from them. Then these objects are utilized not for enjoyment, but for righteous purpose, for service to others.
So this line is you should underline. True renunciation does not mean the absence of the object from your life. But true renunciation means the absence of expectation of any pleasure from them. So if you serve a puri to them, it's not as if they won't eat the puri. They'll be like, no, no, this is, I like puri, I can't have it. They will take it as prasad. They will experience the puri, but there is no expectation ki puri mein ye puri wasn't as crispy. It didn't, what do you call it? It wasn't fluffy enough. It had too much oil. None of that. They will eat it as prasad. Right? And that's what renunciation is for all of us also. Real renunciation exists in the state of mind, not with physical objects.
Abandoning egotism, use of force, pride, passion, anger, avarice, and the sense of owning. All these factors arise from overemphasized sense of ego, which keeps a person always restless and eager to accumulate the wealth, power, and worldly possession, with complete disregard for the righteousness of the means employed. Such a person is deprived of peace of mind and cause misery to others.
So abandoning ego. So I think I talked about this right in the beginning, right? They have complete disassociation with their body. And they have complete dissociation with the ego. Ego is what? Ego is the barcode. Ego is the sense that makes us realize that you and I are different. Right? It creates that distinguishing factor for us to be able to see each person as a slightly different entity. What a Sankhya Yoga is, he has no identification with ego and body. So he only sees everyone as one. He only sees the subtle state of all of us. Yeah. So, and other nature of egos. So we've talked about this again in the past. There are two natures of the ego, right? One nature of ego is right and wrong. Right and wrong results in pride, passion, anger, all of that. And the other nature of ego is ownership, mine. Anytime you say, this is mine, this is not mine, this is right, this is wrong, all that is ego. All of that stems from ego. So Sankhya Yoga is a person who does not stem in either of those. He doesn't have any sense of ownership of body. Forget actions, because forget sansar. And second, he has no sense of judgment where he passes right and wrong. आप ये देखो कि ये गीता लिखा है, गीता में भी right and wrong नहीं लिखा है. There is no right and wrong in Gita. There is only, if you be this, you will achieve a state of mind which will be peaceful and happy, which is the purpose of life. If you do this, you will not achieve peaceful. You will have anger, you will have frustration, you will have expectation, and then those will create consequences and you will face those. It's just the law. And Sankhya Yoga is exactly the same. They do not dwell in right and wrong. They do not dwell in any ownership. They just are in complete connection with Bhagwan Ji.
Perfect calm. Adherence to qualities mentioned above helps in achieving supreme peace of mind.
So when you dissociate yourself completely from sansar and you associate yourself completely with Bhagwan Ji, then there is a sense of power that comes along with a sense of calmness, because nothing can disturb you, nothing can push you away. And that's the state they always aim to be at, which is why Sankhya yogis, like even a Om Swami or a Sai Baba, if you read their books, if you studied their lives, they sometimes, even though they would have an event, they would not turn up because they're in dhyan and they don't want to break that dhyan because they want to be in that state, right? And they spent, most of them would have schedules where they would wake up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, be in dhyan for the entire day, and then come out for sansar as and when required to say whatever they needed to, and then go back in dhyan, right? Yeah, Bhagesh, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think you said something about this in the start. So these are the characteristics of Sankhya Yogi, which we are not. We are not Sankhya Yogi. We are Karma Yogi. So does that mean that it's okay if we don't have these qualities?
So we aspire for these qualities, but for a slightly different purpose, because we don't have a state of mind where we have a dissociation with the body. But studying this understands what is the perfect state of all of these things
Hmm.
a human being can have, right? So for us also, having an intellect which is identified with Bhagwan Ji is important. But unlike a Sankhya Yoga who will be in that state throughout, we will be like those tippy toes. We'll be in that state, we'll keep falling. We'll be in that state, we'll keep falling. So all of this would sound too difficult for us to achieve overnight or even in this life, because we're not geared for that. We are geared for Karma Yoga. And that's what we will talk about more.
Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga are two different routes, two different paths, two different marks for the
Yeah.
end goal. You're climbing up a mountain to reach a summit. Karma Yogi path is the scenic view to climb up the mountain, where you go through a slope. It is longer, but it is easier to climb up that path. You slowly go along, you amble along, you have fun along the way. Sankhya Yogi path is the straight up, direct path up. So you're like rappelling up the mountain or like doing rock climbing. So it's much, much tougher. There is a lot of base that a person would have had to build before that person reaches a state in which they can be born as a Sankhya yogi to achieve that last mile move up to Bhagwan Ji. And these characteristics are being defined so that we understand what a Sankhya yogi is supposed to be like. This is the kind of person who can say that I'm a Sankhya yogi, and hence no karma is applicable to me, no duty is applicable to me. So now that you read it, you understand that, oh, I don't have characteristics of a Sankhya yogi, right? So it isn't about whether I should aspire for this or not. It isn't about that at all. Why we're reading this is to know that I am not a Sankhya yogi. My path is not that of a Sankhya yogi. My path is that of a Karma yogi. And the qualities or the characteristics that I need to aspire for are the ones that are described in chapter 16, the Daivi Sur Sampad Vibhag Yoga. So we have 26 divine qualities that have been defined in the first three shlokas of chapter 16. Those are the 26 divine qualities we have to work hard to inculcate in ourselves. And post that, there are these qualities that are described that of asurs, right? And those are the ones that we have to take out. So that as a karma yogi is what our job is. जैसे हम नहाते हैं, right? So when we take a bath, we're cleaning ourselves. So asuri sampadas are those that we have to clean those out of us. We have to take them out of us. And after a shower, when we put on cream, we put on sandalwood, we put on perfume, we put on hair oil, all of that are good that we take on. So these are the Devi gun, the divine qualities that we're supposed to bring into ourselves. Does that help?
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Bhagesh, do you want to read the connection?
Yeah. When a person achieves identification with the Supreme Self, adherence to the qualities mentioned in shlokas 51, 52, and 53 enables him to exhibit the attitude mentioned in the next shloka.
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma
Na Shochati Na Kankshati
Na Shochati Na Kankshati
Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Mada Bhakti Labhate Param.
Madbhaktim Labhate Param. Such a serene person, totally identified with the Supreme Self, neither grieves nor covets anything, maintaining an evenness of mind for everyone. Such a yogi attains supreme devotion to me. Attainment of supreme devotion by a Jnana yogi. The mind of the Jnana yogi, who is identified perfectly with the Supreme Self, remains ever serene as it is entirely unaffected by grief or by covetousness. Being absolutely contented, such a yogi does not entertain any expectations of happiness from nor any aversion to anyone. The distinctions of friendship, enmity, opposition, and kinship have no place in such a mind, for it perceives only itself in the shape of all beings. The Lord calls it the state of supreme devotion when there is a complete merger of the identity of such a yogi with the Lord.
This is very clear. We've discussed this in the several times in the past as well. So essentially, their mind is completely co-joined with Bhagwanji. So their sense of, they don't have a sense of identity, they only have a sense of devotion to Bhagwanji. And because they have only a sense of devotion to Bhagwanji, they have no sense of ego or association with the body. They look at the entire sansar as is, which is just a reflection of Bhagwanji and his will, his maya and his will. And that person Bhagwanji is saying is very dear to him because he sees the real and does not engage in the unreal. You add anything?
So what is important here is to read what is, the very first word, right? The mind of the Jnana Yogi who is identified perfectly with the Supreme Self. So what is the tool that is available to us to identify with Bhagwanji? It is the mind, not who recognizes Bhagwanji, who becomes one with Bhagwanji. What is the tool through which we are able to perceive Bhagwanji? It is the mind, not the intellect. And yet we always say that mind must always be under the control of a buddhi and a certain type of buddhi, which is the nischayatmika buddhi, the intellect that knows its purpose, its ultimate welfare, right? But and we've always stated that the nature of intellect is such that it is closest God, right? And so it is able to reflect godliness, with which then it reflects that godliness to all other aspects of the antakaran. Despite that closeness, right? We've talked about how iron and magnet, when iron is next to magnet, iron gets magnetized, right? That was the example we had thought of and discussed to understand the nature of intellect. But intellect, despite that nature, is not the tool to recognize Bhagwanji. The tool is the mind. Okay, a mind that is under complete control, it is completely serene, right? So why are we Karmiyo? Connecting this back to the last conversation that Bhagyashri created. Why are we Karmiyogi? Because the mind that recognizes Bhagwanji, the mind that achieves the merger with the Supreme Self, is a certain type of mind. That mind must be completely serene. It must be free from all covetousness, anger, hatred, everything that we just read, right? And should have complete control over their body. Such a such a mind belongs to that of a jnana yogi. So you see the word that you, the mind of a jnana yogi. He did not say the mind of a Sankhya yogi or a Karma yogi. Now, the mind that has become so is the mind that belongs to that of a Jnana yogi. Every word here is very, very important. It's been used for a purpose. So why does the mind belong to that of a Jnana yogi? Because what are we trying to achieve here? We are trying to achieve oneness with Bhagwanji, right? And oneness with Bhagwanji means that we are trying to remove our ignorance. The only way to remove ignorance is to achieve the Gyan. Right? So you cannot achieve oneness with Bhagwanji without Gyan. Gyan is the only source, the only path. But for you to be able to walk that path, your antakaran and your mind needs to be of a certain level, which was described in the last shloka, the characteristics. For our antakaran to come to that level, we need the help of Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga, which is why we did the first 12 chapters. The first 6 chapters, Karma Yoga, the next 6 chapters, Bhakti Yoga. Those are the tools to achieve a certain antakaran. We need antakaran ki shuddhi, cleanliness of our antakaran, cleanliness of our tools, calibration of our tools, such that it becomes capable of being able to achieve oneness with the Bhagwanji. So we are Karma Yogi because our antakaran is not pure and clean or calibrated enough to be able to achieve its outcome. So we do Karma Yoga, we do Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga, not just Karma Yoga. We do Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga. That's our path. And when we follow that path, then we get to a stage where at some point of time, our antakaran is completely pure and clean. And then we become worthy of receiving the ज्ञान. आज की तारीख में ऐसा है कि अगर आपका अंतःकरण इज नॉट क्लीन इनफ, तो अगर भगवान जी सामने भी आ जाएंगे हमारे, तो हम उन्हें रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं कर पाएंगे. We'll tell him बकवास है, ये तो है ही नहीं भगवान जी, what it proved to me. And even if he proves to me, I will not be able to recognize it. If he tells me something about me and he tells me कि तो ना you are Bhagwanji yourself, what will I say? Heck, you don't know who I am. Right? You don't know anything about me. What can you tell me about me? Only I know about myself. I'll say stuff like that. संशय, क्योंकि हमारी बुद्धि निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धि नहीं है. It is संशय बुद्धि. It is always cavilling. It is full of doubts. It is always questioning everything. Okay? And that is why we have to do the karma, bhakti vishvat karma yoga to be able to convert our sanshaya buddhi to nischayatmika buddhi, a cavilling, doubting intellect to a steadfast intellect that knows its ultimate purpose, which will then direct the other aspects of our antakaran, starting with mind and then bringing in control. So Dhamma and the Sham. That is why we have the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. That's for us to follow to become worthy of Gyan, which will then get us to Bhagwanji, oneness with Bhagwanji. Does that make clear? The part or the general, like we always have to constantly zoom out to know where we stand and what is the part of every chapter in the whole, the part of every shloka in the whole. Make sense?
Yeah, what's the meaning of Nischyatmika?
Nischayatmika buddhi, which was described in chapter 3, is that intellect that knows its ultimate purpose. It's like that, it's like the example that was given to us in chapter 3 was that of a trader, right? A trader knows what is the best way to spend his resources to get the highest ROI on his resources. So a Nischayatmika buddhi knows that my ultimate highest ROI of this life comes from getting to know the ultimate truth. Because getting to know the ultimate truth will get me the ultimate welfare, which is my constant state of bliss and happiness. And so he will take every decision about every aspect of his life with the idea that whether is this going to get me closer to my ultimate goal or will it take me away? That is the Nishyatmaka Buddhi. So if you are, speaking, eating, sleeping, doing any action in this world, that whether it is the right thing for you to do or how to do it will be guided by this kind of a Nishchayatmaka Buddhi, steadfast intellect. It does not change its end goal every day. Make sense?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right. Smita, you'd like to read?
Yeah, sure. So are we on Shloka 56, right?
54 और 55 के बीच में connection.
Okay. A connection. The Lord speaks of this merger of identities.
Bhaktya mam abhijanati
Bhaktya mam abhijanati
yavana yaschassim tatvatah
yavan yaschasmi tattvaha
tato mam tatvato gyantva
mam tattvato gyatva
vishate tadanam taramam.
vishate tadan ataram anantaram tad anantaram vishate tad anantaram.
Okay.
By that supreme devotion, the yogi knows me in essence as to what and who I am. Having known me thus in essence, the yogi forthwith enters into the supreme. Unification of Gyan Yogi with the Absolute. As a result of supreme devotion, the Gyan Yogi becomes aware of the supreme absolute reality. But this awareness is not of the type of the external knowledge of objects which one comes across in the phenomenal world. This awareness comes from the unfoldment of the individualized self in its final unification with the Supreme Self, tearing the veil of ignorance in which it was shrouded. This is like the burning of a piece of a wood, which, when completely burnt, becomes fire itself. The entry into the Supreme is also not like the entry of someone into something separate from it. It is like the entry of someone who was asleep into the waking state. As has been mentioned before, the number of Gyan yogis in the world is very small.
So, but this is the goal that we have as well, which is, and we read this in chapter 9, that the difference between sansaric knowledge and real knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita that we are reading is sansaric knowledge is acquired, understood, learned, memorized, and then used for certain aspects. Real gyan, you become knowledge, which is why they say it's self-realization, which is what Tuvina was saying, is as karma yogis, our main effort is to work on our antakaran so that we become less deluded and we are able to realize our true nature and ourself. And Gyan yogis here or Sankhya yogis here, because their mind is completely merged with the absolute, they have no such delusion. They are in constant association with Bhagwanji. Say, no, say it. You're on speaker. I've just shared that one. I just shared that. Okay. Visalakshi, you'd like to read with us?
Yeah.
You can read the connection.
In Shlokas 45 to 48, the Lord succinctly described the features of Karma Yoga. Similarly, in Shlokas 49 to 55, he described the features of Jnana Yoga. Now he takes up the Yoga of devotion.
Sarva karmanya Sarva-karmanyapi sada.
Sarva karmanyapi sada.
Purvano madvapyashraya.
Purvano madvapyashraya.
Madprasadadva. Sorry. Can you?
Can I try?
Two nice come.
Mat prasadad vapnoti.
Mat prasadvat vatoki.
Shashvatam padam avyayam.
Shashvatam pavamatyayam.
Padam avyayam.
Pavamatyayam.
Padam avyayam.
Padam
Avyayam.
agyayam. Okay. Even performing all actions ever with the spirit of total surrender to me leads to the attainment of the eternal immutable state through my grace. Attainment of eternal state of devout actions. The characteristics of a Jnana Yogi numbered in Shlokas 51 to 53 appear to the highly dualistic and almost impossible to attain in life today. Even the features of Karma Yoga explained in Shloka 45 to 48 may appear formidable and lacking in incentive and pleasure. But the fact is that in pursuing either of these two disciplines, the emphasis does not lie on the external form of behavior. What is the important is the reorientation of the mental attitude, but that too sounds difficult on account of the acceptance of the false values of life, which has become ingrained in the mind due to lifelong practice. This is why the Lord introduced the easy method of the yoga of devotion mixed with action, in which mental absolute are overcome by the grace of the Lord. The way to admit this method is by performing the duties of life and by not being disturbed by the temptations and aversions, but carrying them out with duty and in a spirit of surrender to the Lord. This can be done by a firm covetousness that the Lord is omni, omnipotent. What is that? How to pronounce?
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, and is the supreme friend and well-wisher of all. Then in every situation, the mind is strengthened by his grace and kindness, and there is a feeling of elation of having been made a part of the Lord's scheme of things. Then the action of daily life appeared to the enjoyed by him, to be performed with the strength given by him, and to be his and to be for his pleasure. Whoever comes in contact appears to be a divine participant in the Lord's play, accepting the moral values of life as being true. One seeks the Lord's help in adhering to them. Performing the duties of life in this manner, the devout does not regard them as burdenous or difficult at all, and all the heart is ever joyful. In this shloka, the Lord assures that each such a devotee also attain the supreme immutable state.
So so we first did the Karma Yoga, then we talked about the Jnana Yoga, the Sankhya Yoga, and now he's talking to us about the path that is for all of us, which is Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga. And he says that is the easiest path forward, because in Karma Yoga, you have to do all the things which seem extremely difficult to do. In case of Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga, what happens is that you accept that there is Bhagwanji and there is a path to constantly surrender yourself to him and ask him कि जो भी मेरे actions में जो त्रुटि रह गई है, if there is any flaw that is left in my actions, I dedicate them to you. Right? If I am feeling scared, then I have somebody who I accept as somebody higher than me that I devote myself to. So in case of a bhakti yoga, basically what happens is that there is a differentiation between the object of devotion and the devotee. Right? There is a sense of separateness. There is no unity here. In case of Gyan Yoga, there is unity. There is no I, me, myself. There is no small s self. There is only one capital S self. Okay? There is only Bhagwanji. In case of Bhakti Yoga, there is duality. And the duality is that of object of devotion and a devotee. I am separate and I am small, and you are immanent. You are the Karta Dharta of this world. Okay? There is that differentiation. But even through that sense of duality, Bhagwanji says that this is the path of duality through which you will still achieve the gyan and you will achieve the unity. The perception of unity will be achieved through this path of duality. Okay? And he says that this is the easiest path because bhakti is like ghee in, which takes off all the friction from the karma yoga. It is like a little bit of sugar that gets added to your milk and adds the sweetness to life. So it makes the path of Karma Yoga easier to follow. When you look at the injunctions on the path of Karma Yoga and your mind says, and your mind will doubt them, your mind will question them, because there is, we'll find it impossible to really follow all the aspects that are required of us. And why is that so? It is because of our vasanas. Our vasanas will constantly come in the way and tell us, ye karna hai, ye nahi karna. This is too difficult. I don't want to do it. Likes and dislikes, rag and dvesh will constantly come in because of our vasanas, because of our past habits. Okay? And whenever we run up against our vasanas, whenever we run up against this raga and dvesh, likes and dislikes, what are we going to do in case of karma yoga? There is no other way but to gear ourselves. There's only reliance on myself. Now that itself is very difficult. When there is reliance on my own self to like follow this path, then ego will 100% go out of the, it will become bigger. Without bhakti makes us surrender. Without that, whenever we run up, now in case of Bhakti Mishra Karma Yoga, whenever we run up against these obstacles, what do? We surrender ourselves to Bhagwan Ji and we say, मुझसे तो नहीं हो पा रहा. First of all, there is no doubt here कि ये जो भी मुझे बताया जा रहा है that it is wrong. What we say is ये सही है. You accept it. You say the moral values that are being taught here are actually correct. I am unable to implement it in my life. I am unable to figure out how to manage this or, follow this through. And then there is surrender. There's awareness and then there is surrender. That Bhagwan ji, mujhse nahi ho pa raha. Now you help me figure it out. You help me do this. And that's why we do Nam Jap. Right? When we do Nam Jap, when we do Puja, we are basically surrendering to Bhagwan ji and saying ki, I am unable to do this. Now you've got to help me. You alone will make me do this. And with that reliance, with that surrender, the ego, it's much easier for us to bring our ego down to as close to zero as is possible. And biggest impediment in our lives to reach Bhagwan Ji is ego. Ego is the one that transforms, that changes its forms in hundreds of sneaky ways, right? And it tries to trip us up because ego has a life of its own by now, does not want to be diminished. So it will only transform its shape from one to another, to another, to another to fool us.
Not just life of its own, it has a deep association with intellect, which is why we get deluded. Because the intellect and the ego together can spin stories that are just all imagination, but they are really powerful together, right? In deluding us. That's why the intellect, what we read, needs to be associated with Bhagwan Ji. And that strong association itself, as Tuna mentioned, will help in keeping ego in check.
So now Bhagwan Ji understands the problems that we are up against, the obstacles we are up against. That is why he said, for us, it isn't Karma Yoga, it isn't Jnana Yoga, it isn't even Bhakti Yoga. Khali Bhakti Yoga se bhi aapko ye result mil jayega. Bhakti Yoga alone with no Karma Yoga can lead us to Bhagwan Ji as well. But Bhakti Yoga alone itself is something that we are not capable of. There are saints who have just traveled the path of Bhakti Yoga, like Meera. None of us are like Meera. We don't have that level of surrendership. We have a lot of ego in us. A complete, total Bhakti yogi will have full surrendership of their ego. Okay, so that we have examples like Meera and then the other saint जिन्होंने Bhakti Yoga को फिर से restart किया था. I'm forgetting his name. So there are lots of examples of Bhakti yogis in our tradition, in other traditions. But we are not capable of any of those because of what our state of antakaran is today. And so Bhagwan Ji has very clearly throughout Gita brought us back. He told us, okay, know this, but know that your path specifically is Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga. Okay? Yeah, Bhagyashri.
So since we have been talking about performing the duties in life, how do I identify what are my duties? Is it like what the general path which is taught to us? Okay, do job, earn money, and take care of your parents, spouse, family, whatever. Is this what my duty is? How do I identify?
Your duty is to find yourself. That's one important thing. That's your first duty in every stage of your life. Beyond that, the tactical duties are determined by Desh, Kal, Parasthiti and the ashram of life you are in. The duties as a student versus duties as a grahast versus duties in your sannyas ashram and in every ashram, the 4 ashrams that are given, there are different duties. Okay. The other thing is that, so in chapter 3, we have been told how to identify your duties, right? Ashram will tell you, a lot of Upanishads will tell us what duty in every ashram is. It's very prescriptive. If you read some of these Upanishads, very, very, very prescriptively described what your duties are. But at a very high level, in general, there are 4 purusharths that are given to us: dharma, arth, काम एंड मोक्ष. ठीक है. इसमें भगवान जी ने हमें बहुत क्लियरली बोला है कि काम और अर्थ, these are not affected by the actions of this life. The only 2 things that are affected by the actions of this life are dharma and moksha. Kam and arth are already defined when you are born through the sanchit karma, that are prarabdha, that has been brought forth in this life. Okay. So whatever your life circumstances are and the ashram of your life is, it will present to you different situations. Different VVGPs will keep coming in your life. And in that VVGP, how do you know that you're doing your duty? The only way to, if first of all, when we constantly are doing Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga and our Antakaran is getting cleansed, eventually what happens is that our intellect becomes perspicacious enough for it to tell me constantly, this is your duty, this is your duty, this is your duty. When I do not have that level of subtle intellect, then the cheat sheet is to see in this VVGP, am I manifesting one of the 26 divine qualities or not? That is my duty. That's my cheat sheet. This is the VVGP that you don't have to go outside of your life. Every single day, whatever circumstances your life is throwing up to you, you are going through a grahastashram, you have your duties towards your parents, towards your in-laws, towards your siblings, towards your husband, towards your job, towards your friends, towards the communities you find yourself in. It will present opportunities to you. And in each of those opportunities, you have to see how am I manifesting my 26 divine qualities? And how am I going to do this in a way that I dedicated to the Lord? That's it. So you have to constantly ask yourself, am I doing this action for the ego, or am I doing this action for Bhagwan Ji? If you are doing an action for Bhagwan Ji, then you are doing your duty. It's very difficult for you to go wrong when you're doing things in a way that your ego and your selfish interests are not involved. If you're saying this is the best thing to do in this situation, okay, where you are looking out for everybody's self-interest, right? Everybody's interest, and you are doing the duty with the energy given by the Bhagwanji for his pleasure alone. You're not trying to make your husband happy. You're not trying to make your parents happy. You're not trying to make your boss happy. You're not trying to make your child happy. You're trying to only please one and only one being, and that is Bhagwanji. And you will please him how? When you are manifesting your 21, any one or 20, whatever, depends on the situation, how many of those 26 divine qualities come into play. In certain cases, the divine quality you have to put into play is self-confidence or self-mastery, right? Arjavam or abhayam or samshuddhi. Those are all listed, right? When I am displaying one of the 26 divine qualities in a situation, then I'm doing my duty. It's a cheat code. अगर कुछ नहीं समझ में आ रहा तो आप ये करो. Another cheat code that Bhagwan Ji gave us was कि अगर आपको नहीं समझ में आ रहा आपका स्वधर्म क्या है, तो then the second way is to see what will you do that will not get you infamy. अगर कुछ और नहीं समझ में आ रहा तो do something that should not get you infamy in this world. Chapter 3 में था. Okay, then do जो सब लोग कहते हैं कि अच्छी चीजें करने के लिए, सही चीजें करने के लिए, जिसको आपको छुपाना ना पड़े. Then you go down to that level of understanding कि चलो, I will do what everybody is going to tell me, or in generally accepted practice says is the good thing to do. तब हम वो करेंगे. But उससे पहले, this is like going down the ladder. Yeah. मेक सेंस? अल्टीमेटली क्या होगा ना कि धीरे 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 करके दे सी ऑल ऑफ अस नो भाग्यश्री, जब कोई एक ऑब्वियसली गुड और ऑब्वियसली बैड सिचुएशन है, वी आर ऑल एबल टू वेरी क्विकली डिसर्न कि व्हाट इज द राइट थिंग टू डू. द प्रॉब्लम कम्स व्हेन देयर आर टू seemingly right things to do. Should I be prioritizing my work here? Should I be prioritizing my family here? I have two competing requests here. That's when the confusion comes. Where does my duty lie right now? है ना? वो कोई आपको उसका डायरेक्ट आंसर नहीं दे सकता. गीता भी नहीं देगी आपको डायरेक्ट आंसर. वो आंसर आपके अंदर से ही आएगा. और वो आंसर कौन देगा आपको? दैट निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धि. एंड दैट निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धि को की बात सुनने के लिए वी नीड टू कीप क्लेंजिंग आवर अंतःकरण. जितना हमारा अंतःकरण प्योर होता जाएगा उतना क्लियरली वो आवाज हमारे सामने आएगी और हमें बहुत क्लियरली धीरे धीरे ऐसा होगा कि सिचुएशन में आपको कंफ्यूजन ही नहीं होगा कि वेयर डज योर ड्यूटी लाई, हाउ डू यू मैनेज competing problems of your life for us. And then what is the easiest tool Bhagwan ji has given us to get to that level? Clean कैसे करना है? नाम जप. इसीलिए हमें बार बार अनुष्ठान दिया जाता है, नाम जप करो, नाम जप करो. इट इज द easiest thing in this world to get to a state कि हम अपने आप से क्वेश्चन पूछ सके और हमें आंसर मिल सके. Make sense?
Let's stop. 11:40. कर सकते हैं. Vijay, would you like to read the connection?
Thus, propounding the principle of devotion mixed with action, the Lord says,
चेतसा सर्वकर्माणि
Chetasa sarvakarmani
मयि sorry.
मयि संन्यस्य मत्परः
Mayi sanyasya matparaha
बुद्धि
बुद्धियोगमुपाश्रित्य
buddhi yogam upashrastya
मचित्त सततं भव.
machita satatam bhava
मच्चित्त सततं भव.
machitta satatam bhava.
Two chairs there, right? Half chair, full chair. Emphasis.
Mentally surrendering all actions to me, thinking of me alone as supreme attainment, resorting to the yoga of wisdom. Ever fix your mind on me. Yoga of wisdom as foundation of the yoga of devotion. The mental surrendering of all actions to the Lord becomes possible if intellect is made his obedient servant, ready to carry out his bidding without slightest demur. Ordinarily, the mind is always busy in carrying out plans to fulfill desires without pausing to think whether the actions are righteous or not. But by obedience to scriptural precepts, all actions get dedicated to the Lord. Leaning totally on the Lord's support helps the mind to achieve evenness in pleasure and suffering, in gain and loss, etc. Performing actions with such evenness of mind has been called yoga of wisdom. This is also called devotion dominated yoga of action.
So, to achieve this state, right, as a karma yogi, what Gita says is having lok sangra top of your mind, your seva bhav as top of your mind when you do your duty. Very often, what Bhageshri also asked regards the question of the duty, a lot of times we carry out the duty because it's our desire to give them pleasure or our desire to control an outcome, or we are doing things or not doing things because somebody told us to. Right? And that is not the right way to carry out your duty. Every act that we do as a grahast is an opportunity for us to do seva. And when we do that act as seva for Bhagwan Ji and we give that as a up saying Bhagwan Ji, मैं आपके लिए कर रहा हूँ, then that creates a yoga of wisdom, but it more importantly creates yoga with Bhagwanji, connection with Bhagwanji every time you do an action, right? But a lot of time, the reason why duty becomes heavy for us is because we do it because of the expectation of others or our own expectations, or we try to fulfill their pleasures. Dissociating the fact that नहीं काम है वो फिर भी सेवा है. It doesn't matter whether the other person likes it or doesn't like it. If I've been given that role, I will do it. If I have the opportunity to do seva, I will do that seva. Right? And that's the yoga of devotion. Right?
Leaning totally on Lord's support helps the mind to achieve evenness in pleasure and suffering, in gain and loss. The example would be you have a client who is investing in stock market. ठीक है, आपने invest किया, या तो उसमें loss होगा या gain होगा, right? If you are simply a broker, okay, somebody tells you execute this, buy this stock, sell that stock, you simply execute that order to the best of your abilities, getting the best price possible in the market. उसके बाद उसमें gain हो रहा है या loss हो रहा है from that trading decision is not your problem. Nobody's going to hold you responsible for that, right? Because you've just done the best possible execution, best in class execution for that trade, and the results of that trade will accrue to the person who gave you the orders, which is in this case Bhagwanji, right? So you're not going to get worried ki kal will I have a, you won't say, oh, I should get like a huge bonus if that trade resulted in a big profit, and you will not feel afraid that, oh, you're going to get fired because that trade did not yield results, right? There is no thing, you know you've done your best, that's it, right? But if you were the guy who was recommending that, right, I want you to do this, or you were that, you're not a broker, you are a fund manager who is taking discretionary decisions on your client's portfolio, then the results of that portfolio, the gains or losses, will directly accrue to you. This is the difference in you acting. Discretionary fund manager is an ego-driven behavior in this world. I am doing it with reliance on my intellect, my intelligence, my resources, my money, my house, my relationships, right? Whereas doing this as a stockbroker executing best-in-class action is the Karma Yogi, where I'm doing it with Bhagwanji's resources, for his pleasure, with his energy, and only on his direction. And in that case, there is complete evenness of mind in gain or loss. You're not worried about anything. And there is equipoise in every situation in life. It all comes through devotion, domination. Devotion is not puja part. Okay, puja part is one of the external ways of reminding yourself of that devotion. Devotion really is about surrendering your ego, remembering that nothing belongs to you. All resources, all skills, everything we have in our lives belongs to Bhagwanji, given by Bhagwanji for a certain purpose. Yeah. Thank you. I think we can do a round of takeaways now.
Yeah, I can go. So what we have seen about Jnana Yogi today, it's about the path of wisdom. So focuses on realizing the neti contemplation or self-inquiry related right? Like how the Jnana Yogi's way of life or way of thought process essentially is my understanding.
I can go next. The purpose of every action is should be dedicated to the ultimate union with the divine, and understanding that all the resources are coming only from the divine. So uh, always remembering that and doing everything dedicated to the divine. That's what is going to lead us to uh, uh, merging karma yoga and bhakti yoga. So that is how we can. That is the only way forward for us. That's what is my takeaway from today.
I think I can go next. I think what the chapter kind of again stresses today is, or the last few shlokas again was stressing on bhakti mishrit karma yoga. We cannot get away with our karma, right? So we have to do our karma to the best of our ability and do it with bhakti in mind, because that is more effective. We are able to do it with a lot more ease, and that is what is expected out of us, because it just is the way of Gita, that do it with a lot of bhakti. And bhakti again is described in form of, say, nam jap, or scriptures, and hearing and preaching what we can. I mean, hearing and following what we understand out of it. So I think that is the essence that I got out of it.
Devotion is not just nam jap or puja or reading scriptures, right? You remember Bhakti Yoga that we did, that entire 6 chapters. At no point of time in any of those chapters were we told ki puja karo. Kahin bhi nahi. So Bhakti Yoga devotion is not about puja. Let's be very clear about it. Devotion is about surrendering your ego, surrendering your will to the higher will. Recognition of a higher will, recognition that that will is always working for my ultimate welfare, and surrendering to that higher design is devotion.
Yeah.
All the other external aspects that we discuss, like nam jap or puja or reading the scriptures, are tools towards actually getting that devotion in place. Because we are not capable, we are very gross, right? Our consciousness is very, very gross. So our consciousness at this level, it needs physical tools.
Yeah.
Like physical yoga is one of the ways, physical yoga, including breath work, it's a very physical thing to do, right? These physical aspects are a way to ultimately get control over our mind, which is very subtle. But you can't just get to that subtle control of your mind just by simply sitting in meditation. Try it and you will not be able to succeed even for 10 minutes. And that is why we need physical tools to get there. And these tools can be art and varied forms: yoga, exercise, vrat, ये अपना scriptural studies, नाम jap, puja. These are all physical tools towards getting devotion, but let's not confuse the tools with devotion itself. Make sense? Because otherwise हम लोग क्या करते हैं, when we confuse the two, हम करे रहेंगे पूजा, खूब कर्म कांड कर रहे हैं, लेकिन दिल उतना ही मलिन है, कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ उसका, टाइम वेस्ट कर दिया हमने, रिसोर्सेज वेस्ट कर दिए, but it has had no change on me as a person. My mind has not become purer just because I did puja. Karm kand is not equal to puja. It is a tool which we can use towards purifying ourselves. Thanks.
I can go next. So the shloka which describes the qualities of Sankhya yogis, we know that like I cannot reach at that state. I cannot do all those things, and which the Sankhya yogi does. So because I'm not yet there, maybe I might not get there in a few lifetimes maybe. So what I have to do is manifest at least the 26 divine qualities, which are like basic fearlessness, forgiveness, whatever is mentioned in those 3 shlokas of chapter 16. So yes, that is one thing. And focus on identifying what my duty is. Like you said, finding myself, VVGP situations will come to me, and I'll know how to act in those situations and do those actions for God only.
Correct. एंड सबसे बड़ी चीज क्या है ना कि फर्स्ट थिंग इज फॉर अस टू बी एबल टू लाइक इवन रिकॉग्नाइज आवर ड्यूटी व्हिच वाज योर क्वेश्चन 101, हाउ डू आई नो व्हाट इज माय ड्यूटी। हम लोगों को आधे टाइम पता ही नहीं होता हमारी ड्यूटी क्या है करने के लिए। तो उससे उस ड्यूटी को जानने के लिए, जानना हमारी सबसे पहली ड्यूटी है। हम कैसे जाने कि हमारी ड्यूटी है, वो हमारी ड्यूटी सबसे पहली ड्यूटी है, राइट। इट्स लाइक वेदांत पूर्व, नॉट वेदांत, इट्स वेदांत, इट्स वेद पूर्व नॉट वेद अंत। तो वो हम कैसे करें, इट्स लाइक अ प्री कंडीशन टू ज्वाइनिंग अ कॉलेज, राइट। तो वो प्री कोर्स हमारा क्या है, वो है टू थिंग्स। अगर और कुछ नहीं करना तो आप स्वाध्याय करें ऑफ 16.1, 16.2, 16.3। Remind yourselves by reading just those three shlokas, which will take you 2 minutes to remind yourself what those 26 divine qualities are that I must try and manifest through my entire day. That's your first 101. Second is to do Nam Jap. If we do these two activities, take that as your duty, my first and foremost duty through the day. अगर हम ये ड्यूटी करते रहेंगे तो बाकी ड्यूटीज धीरे धीरे और क्लियर होती चली जाएंगी, और जहां क्लैरिटी नहीं है वहां पे we will just remind ourselves what my divine qualities are that I need to manifest. So आप, it will become easier.
So just to add, right, when you want to develop a particular quality, say patience, God will not just give you patience. He will give you situations in which you can practice patience. And that's how you develop. And you will reach a situation where you don't practice the patience, and then you realize, shoots, I should have done this. And then another situation will come where you'll practice this patience. So what your Tuvina is mentioning also about the divine qualities is Bhagwanji is giving you all of these opportunities to practice these divine qualities. Being aware of them is that allows you to be present there to say, hey, I'm here sharpening this particular quality. And I do the actual job as seva and dedicated to Bhagwanji. Oh, I'm practicing this quality. I do it for Bhagwanji and I pass on the result. Right? Yeah, Visakh.
Yeah, I'll go next. So my takeaways today is whatever it comes, what Naina said, its source is coming from the God. So you have to, it's coming from the God. Whatever it is it's a good, good way of um, like how you're doing it or how you're practicing it. Like what Abhinav ji said now, like a patience, how you practicing in each situation. 26 qualities also you have to practice. It won't come immediately. The situation, it comes from the God. We have to keep practicing that and apply and surrender to the divine power in each and every situation. So without likes and dislikes.
Thank you, Visalakshi.
And Prem has sent his takeaway, so I'll read it out loud because he's still having technology issues. My takeaway for me, I felt that this class was hard to understand as I haven't gone through all the previous chapters. But the last few shlokas taught me that I need to surrender to God and leave the results in His hands and do my duty to the best I can. Okay. We'll do closing shlokas. I'll just do them. Yeah. Om Sarvesham Swastirбhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet Om Asato Ma Satgamaya तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ओम शांति 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 ओम पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति 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 Narayan, Narayan, everyone.
And
Thank you, Narendra.
Narayan, thank you.